So, welcome to the Lovefly Podcast. And today I'm joined by Wes Platel, which is apparently French royalty. That's what we understand. Yeah, is that right?
So I've been told. Yeah. I've never
Excellent.
looked into
Well,
it.
welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks very much. And this is weird straight away because the music didn't play. So
Do you want me to hum it?
yeah.
Yeah, I know. Music will come on. I promise you for the next one. Although for the YouTube, this will be on as well, it won't be. So,
All right.
but yeah, it's great to see you. We've chatted in the past about some other things, but I'm really interested. We think this might be a part one of part two. So perhaps we could start by just sort of saying, tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, who are you apart from
Yeah,
French
sure.
royalty?
Well, yeah, apart from my French world background, I guess I'm just a regular dude, really. I kind of family guy, got my two daughters, married,
Hmm.
live up in the northwest of the UK. I work for like a big tech company, and my job, as well as our, I suppose, holiday aspirations, could go anywhere in the world. And so, yeah, work can regularly involve international travel
Mm.
as stuff within the country. And then, as far as holidays are concerned, we love to get away. Obviously, the family are growing up as well, start to do a bit more exciting things. Our youngest she's 9 now, so she's starting to sort of get a bit more eventful into the kind of things that she wants to get involved in as well. And yeah, we enjoy going to the sunshine, spending the time on the beach and the water
Mm.
parks and all those kind of things too. So travel's an important thing in terms of life.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, I offered to do the podcast just to really, suppose, I've listened to lots of people tell their story, and so much of it is kind of, it resonates with you, and then
Mm.
there's so much of it that doesn't. So I think I've probably got one of those. I don't know if it's a less common fear of flying, or in terms of what I've come across in my experience,
Okay.
which I thought I'd tell the story of that, and sort of describe to how it started,
Brilliant.
and the journey I've been on, since then as well. So
Okay, so just as a sort of a sit rep then, where are you right now? Are you flying at the moment or are you avoiding flying? What's your current sort of situation?
so current situation is kind of mega, because I am flying, and I have a flight booked for like a transatlantic trip to the USA.
Mm.
So that's a major milestone, and
Okay.
this is like the milestone to get me back where
All
I
right.
was, to back to
All
back
right.
to
Brilliant.
normal, in my
So
view.
you're in the Lovefly Facebook group. Are you following us on Instagram as well or just on Facebook?
No, I don't tend to use Instagram. Don't really use Facebook for anything other than your little private group, to be fair.
Oh, good.
And it was always the podcast. I think it was the podcast I came across to start with on
Mm.
Spotify, and then
Yeah.
I can proudly say still that I've listened to every single one, and
Oh my
I've
God.
enjoyed those. So yeah, they've been helpful.
No, that's yes. I knew some. There are people who listen to all of them, and you're in that camp now, Wes. So they've been labelled.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I I think because my friend John Bond, who's you see him in the group and that, and you've met him as well. He checks them all out as well, and I think, oh my good, when we've known each other 36 years, and I just think that's like a proper friend, isn't it? I'm to listen to me burble on, which is why I try and say as little as possible. So I'm going to shut up. So tell us give us a sort of like up until now your fear of flying story.
sure. Okay. Well, while you were saying about the podcast, though, just before I do, I think I've genuinely looked at some of them and thought, yeah, that looks boring, and then I still enjoyed them. There's been topics in there. I think you bring some wit to various things as well, which is quite amusing. Even the audiobook thing, and I always recommend that episode 69 to people, just because I think it's just it's a comedy as well as like a
Oh, do you think
genuine.
so? Yeah, I
Yeah.
was listening to it the other day actually because we're redoing the 30-day program, and I'm listening back to some bits in there, going, "Oh my God, that's got to change." And then when I listen to the audiobook, it sounds really stifled to me now compared to how I normally talk. But
Yeah.
I suppose
Yeah.
when you're reading out text, you have to do it. I don't know. I can't bear to listen to myself, to be honest. So thank
Yeah.
you.
So yeah, my story, I think, if I start way back to kind of pre a certain event, I don't really have any proper flight memories or events that I can think of. I just know that we went on holiday when I was a child, and growing up as well. And that I remember always when I was a kid on a certain flight going to maybe Menorca or something, I had a little toy, and as the air stewardess used coming up and down, I would clip it onto her sort of the tag as she went past, and then she would sort of, it would be a funny thing when I was a kid, and she used to kind of bring it back and we'd laugh about it. I've got that memory in my mind. That's the only real memory I've got from flights when I was younger.
That's quite cute, though. Was.
And then I think it was probably, it's more than 15 years ago. It must be about 16, 17 years ago. I had, I guess, what was my main bad event, and it was just a bad transatlantic flight. And it was something that just genuinely scared me. And it was just, it was basically heavy, what I would consider heavy turbulence.
Right.
And I don't know whether that was actually medium or severe or not really. I didn't really know about it back then. But that experience properly threw me. And, cabin crew strapped in, people screaming. I literally kissed the floor when I got off at the other end, and it was like that shook me, that knocked me. And then since then,
so just give us a sec, because that's, I mean, if you don't mind, I'm kind of curious about how long did it go? So it's just a bit more detail so people get a sense of what you've had to battle. So
sure,
you were going from where to where, and what sort of flight was it? Size,
I purposely excluded that in case anyone had a flight booked coming back, and it was going to be a little trigger.
It's going to be a sign. So, I think we're past the superstition stuff. All right.
So it was basically coming back from Dominican Republic. So we'd had a really nice holiday. We were coming back over the Atlantic, and I can't remember what point in the year it was, whether it was a bit of a stormy part of the year with hurricanes, that kind of thing. But at some point across, the trip, and as I say, this is must be 17 years ago. At some point in this trip, the turbulence had started, and then what I remember of it is it being, shaking, banging noises, things getting moved, thrown around in the thing. I remember a woman screaming, the cabin crew just kind of strapped in and everything, and it just was one of those where I can't remember how long it lasted, or any kind of parts either side of that, other than remember getting off at the other end and kissing the floor and thinking, I am glad to be back on the ground again after that. And it could have been that, there was hours of calmness again afterwards. This is just a big thing that I remember in my mind.
Of course, yeah.
And then, since then I ended up with various other transatlantic flights, going mostly to the US, with work mostly, and holidays as well. So Vegas, Boston were main ones that I can remember. And I just always remember, since that original bad experience, it was like a noticeable thing all the time coming back over the Atlantic, where it was just choppy, and the slightest bits were just enough to I'm the one who's holding the plane up with, waiting for the next one. So
Wes, is it just long flights then? Was it so short ones in Europe and that you're okay?
It seemed to be, and I can give you a bit more on that, really, I suppose, as it comes into the more recent years. But that seemed to be the common experience that I had, where it was just bumpy on the way back over the Atlantic. And so I had it in my head that this was always going to be the case. I'd get on the plane. I remember the captain's voice one night coming back from, I think it might have been the Boston one. And we sat down, we hadn't even moved, to start taxiing. And he just came on the radio and just sort of said, I'm sorry, guys, it's just one of those nights tonight. We're going to have a bit of chop on the way home, sort of thing. And then it was like, oh, fuck's sake, right. Head on the window and just try and close my eyes and wake up, 8 hours later or 7 hours later, whatever it was. So that was just my expectation then. And I just went through.
Sorry, Wes, can I just ask a question? I always like to ask people this. Would you have rather he or she said nothing when you got on board, or would you rather know there's going to be turbulence?
Yeah, it's a mixture, really, isn't it? Because I know from my own experiences, even the most recent flight, they said probably going to have to put the belt signs on again and again and again through the event of the flight, and then it wasn't actually too
Nothing
bad.
Happened,
yeah, there was a little bit at the beginning, and then a little bit more that was a bit heavier, but then after that it was pretty good all the way home. So if I guess I'm one of those where if I knew when it was going to be and for how long and how bad it was, I get that straight in my head, and I'm okay then.
Yeah.
It's when I don't know when it's coming, how long it's going to last, how bad it's going to be. That's what annoys me. And it is an aggravation as well. I think it's more of an aggravation thing that I've got to sit through it and put up with it, and I don't know how long it's going to be or not.
Yes.
So I think that's always been the case. And what I ended up doing over the years was kind of very much not enjoying those experiences to the point where I just stopped doing it. And so I think I ended up with, where did we come back for? Oh, it was our honeymoon. We went to Orlando and Miami and places like that. And we ended up flying in and out of Orlando. And I just, since then, which was probably about 11 years ago now, that was the last time I did a long haul. And so since then, I would do short flights only. I'd avoid the work trips where it might have been an opportunity to go and do conferences and the usual things that we would do. I'd avoid the long haul stuff. I wouldn't even suggest a holiday anywhere that was long haul. It would just be shorter, medium type destinations.
So for about 11 years then, this has been quite a serious impact on you, hasn't it?
Yeah. And like I say, it's not stopped me. It's never stopped me from flying. The shorter journeys would be Spain and France, but then also maybe to Turkey. So the wife's favorite place is Turkey. So that's always been twice a year we'd go, May and September, and then anything in between to go and visit some family or other opportunities that we had. But that was pretty much the max. Turkey would be the 4 or 5 hours. And they were pretty much, always a fine experience anyway. Didn't really have any issues with that. So then, I would say at that point and all through that period, I was a nervous flyer. And it was this mix of the anticipatory side of it leading up to, and it could be days, weeks, months, depending how long ahead I had the notice of where I was going, whether it was a work trip or a holiday. And then it would also be that nervousness during the flight. So no problem with takeoff, no problem with landing, even if it's bumpy on the way down again, or if I know we're in that last half hour, I'm not even bothered, what it's like coming in. But and I had some other little trips to things like Scotland, where it'd be like the propeller planes, where they just literally like this the whole way, for an hour, trying to hold my laptop on the table while I'm working. And I'm just like, I just don't enjoy this, don't like it at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely classed as a nervous flyer for a long period. And at that point, as I say, I was avoiding the work trips for the long haul stuff, which was a common thing. And then I also tried hypnotherapy at this point. So I was kind of like, I need to just try and knit this and get it done. So I did 3 sessions with this hypnotherapist who was recording things and trying to give you the the visualizations and saying stuff, and then I would have to listen to these recordings as I was going to sleep at night. And after these the 3rd session, it was just consuming my mind, and I had to stop, and I couldn't stop thinking about it at all through the day as well as the night. I guess what I didn't know then, which I wonder is the case from what I do know now, is that that once you face the fear, it can heighten to start with, and whether you can then get through that piece to then see it start to quieten off afterwards. I didn't give it that opportunity, I think, at that point, and I wonder if that's where I could have made better progress a long while ago.
Well, so then, I mean, you're doing all right. I mean, you're still getting away. People do often beat themselves up. It might have been just it wasn't the right time for you, or maybe it was good enough to get you to where you are now. So
yeah.
Just trying to stop you giving yourself a kicking. It's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. So then COVID came, and then there was like no flights, as in I did no flights for about 3 years. So it was like a bit of a savior, but also no holidays either, which was a bit of a shame, obviously. And then what happened on the other side of COVID was that I got a new job opportunity. So I started a new job, which was about 18 months ago now. And this, not just any job, this was like career aspiration, end goal. This is what I've always wanted to be and do. And so it was like, this is exciting, but it's stressful as well, because we've got, you're wanting to impress in a new role. But this is like, ever since I started my career out of university, it was like, this is where I wanted to be. And so it was a big moment. And so all this great start. And then the first thing my new boss said to me was,
I know where this is going.
don't worry about
Congratulations.
don't worry about too much in these first weeks. You'll have all your onboarding stuff to get through anyway. All I need you to do is get your Amex card sorted. Get that corporate credit card sorted, because we've got an off-site team meeting and it's in San Diego. And it was like my stomach just churned, and I was like, okay. And it's like, I feel it in the stomach, and then I get this like weird, or used to get this thing, and it's like in the back of my head, like a fan just going off, where it's like hairs on your neck.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, fumbled through that conversation, and then spent about 2 weeks just thinking, what am I going to do? And then it was, I think I paid, I don't know, a few £100 for an EasyJet course at the time. Get me on that quick. Let's have a look what's going on that. It was all remote. There was the option to book a flight, I think, at the end, but it was, I hadn't never got that far. I spent about 2 weeks, I think, of the full-on anticipatory anxiety stuff again. Couldn't focus on the work stuff, didn't have any appetite most days. And in the end, I ended up having to admit to this new boss and just say, I need to tell you something. I'm coming out the other side of COVID. I've realized that I've actually got worse than where I was a bit of a nervous fly before. I'm really struggling with what we're suggesting here.
That was brave.
It was, and I really thought about this conversation many times before I even said it to her. And she just stopped me and just said, stop. Do not worry about that. You don't need to be there. So, I want to stop you there. I don't need you to be, concerned or worried about this to this extent. You don't need to be there.
Wow.
So I understand what you're saying. Let's get you, going in terms of, the things that you need to be doing to get on board and up to speed, and all the other things in the meantime. And it was like,
so how did you feel? Did you feel, was that a relief, or was that like a?
It was two things. It was complete defeat, because
right.
It's probably, one of the only times I can remember where I've just given up on something. And I've never not got on a flight where, thankfully, compared to some of the people who've actually, walked off a plane or never got on at the airport, etc. I've never not got on a flight, but I felt defeated at that point that I'd actually done it. And then what made it even worse was, about a week before the actual trip, they cancelled it, and nobody went in the end anyway. So it was one of those where I probably would have got away with
law, isn't it? You could have
but I would have gone through weeks of the anxiety piece. So but at the same time, the moment I knew I didn't have to fly, all of that anxiety just disappeared completely. Yeah. And I think I've described it to a few people before. It is exhausting with the anxiety piece. So when it's not there, when it's not present, when I know I haven't got a flight coming up, I feel at peace, with the world, sort of thing. And as far as I know, this is the only thing that really, stops me from doing things in life, and really kind of stops me from being the person I'd like to be, and do the things I'd like to do. So, I think I've then spent, I guess, time since then thinking, how do I make this right now? How do I get back to the person I was? How do I get back to doing the things I wanted to do? And the next thing that came up was an opportunity with one of our customers to go to Jersey, which involved a flight. Nice short one, great example, I guess, as a get back on the horse sort of thing. And so by which time I'd found the Lovefly podcasts and was listening to those, finding those suddenly very different, very useful. I'd given up on the EasyJet course. Didn't really sort of work on it, and I didn't finish it either. But yeah, this Jersey opportunity came up, and it was, I think it's an hour's flight from Liverpool. And it was just, I felt different from listening to the podcast and finding this kind of source of similar people, similar experiences, but also some things that made you think about it differently and helped you think about some other ways of, trying it and dealing with it, and what worked for some people, what didn't. So felt different, worked really well towards that flight, did the flight. It was great, even though I think at the time I was sat on the front row on the way out. So this is first flight in a few years. And I could see this guy chatting to the captain about something on his pad, and he was kind of like, yeah, we're going to have to do this and this. And it turns out they had to change a tire on the thing. So even though there was a slight little, something that was wrong with the plane, had to deal with it. I was sat completely calm. It was a great flight. And when I say a great flight, it was nice and smooth. I know you don't necessarily agree with that in terms of what's a good flight or not, as long as it's got a start and an end. But it was great there and back. And I just felt so different. And so since then, what I also tried to do, kind of knowing that there would be a next opportunity for work stuff in the US, if not other, long haul distances and locations, was I started adding in, when I go to London quite regularly, I would try and fly from Manchester to Heathrow instead and just do that half-hour one again, just trying to get a bit more experience.
Yeah.
So I remember the first one down there was great. Yeah, this is extra experience, some good exposure. And then coming back one night, I think it was, again, it was only like 35 minutes, but the first 15 minutes, we were bobbling around up through the clouds, didn't really get out the clouds. And I was like, again, sat there, more of a gripping, tensed, this is kind of what I remember now. So that knocked me back a little bit, but I kind of still forced myself to keep doing those little trips to London. I've done probably 5 or 6 of those over this last year, just to try and get a bit more experience in. And then we did a little trip, just the wife and I. It was a bit of a delayed trip from our anniversary when we never got a chance previously. So we went to Italy for a nice long weekend, and it was a little bit further. Again, trying to sort of build up to a little bit more. And then August, September time was the next stage. So then that was Turkey, getting back to what we used to do, 4 or 5 hours. On the way back from Turkey, it was turbulent on the way out. On the way back, just to start with, and then they kept the lights on. The captain sort of said, we think we might have to put the lights on a few times on the way home, or we might have to stay on, quite a bit on the way home tonight. And then it didn't turn out to be as bad. But I also didn't know whether, again, it was me improving again. It felt like, I was just sitting through it, because I remember the wife sat next to me and she's kind of like, "You all right?" when he'd said it on the radio, on the whatever we call it in the plane. And I was kind of like, yeah. But I just focusing on watching a movie. I've got my noise cancelling headphones on, and I don't know if that makes a big difference as well. That was one of the first times I'd tried as well with the noise cancelling, so that your ears are covered and there's a lot of noise drowned out. But that seemed to make a big difference as well. I know
some people have said that. I'm kind of got, well, you've probably heard of the podcast before, but I've got mixed views on that, to think, because it's fine if it's a choice, but some people are doing it to completely block out the whole flying experience. And I just wonder if that's going to come apart at some point, like what if they lose their headphones, or
run out of charge,
or so, do you know what I mean? So it feels like something that can go wrong because it's a thing to rely on. So, but I do get it. I mean, I would put them on just so I could ignore people, them being an antisocial git. But I just, I just say, but it's helping you at the moment, so that's good. I think.
Yeah. And so this now brings me right to present day now. And then so 2 weeks ago, or maybe a few weeks before, we're back from Turkey. That was good. And then I'm always kind of knowing that at some point a work trip's going to come up. And then we basically ended up with work saying, okay, we're going to get all the teams together. It's going to be like a fresh kickoff for the next sort of period, and it's in Atlanta. So it's kind of like, right, this is long haul. This is the opportunity that has been coming. This isn't going to get cancelled, I don't think. So here it is. And so I was chatting this through with the wife again, and as soon as I told them, the girls are like, we want to go to America. They're kind of like, we want to come. And so this was then turned into, okay, what could we do with this then? So originally we were thinking about whether they could just come out and join me. So I'm out there working for, let's say, 4 or 5 days, and then they could come out and join me, but we'll tag a bit on, and I'll take a week off and we'll do a little holiday while we're out there.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so what we've ended up doing is we've ended up booking flights for the girls, and they're going to come out with me as well, but we're going to actually go to Orlando and then basically do a holiday but they'll have to occupy themselves. We'll take a drive up to Atlanta because the flights didn't work out. Otherwise, we'd have flown there as well. But we're going to do, the family are going to come out. We're going to do a drive up to Atlanta. I'll do my work stuff, and then we'll go back down to Orlando and have a nice little week's holiday as well, and take the little one to Disney and do some pretty cool stuff. So I think there's partly a bit of there's a safety net almost for me there that kind of says, you know what, for that first one, it'd be nice to have them with me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, whenever I'm doing my work trips, it's always one of those where I'm quite often kind of sat there thinking, I wish the wife was here with me to see this or to enjoy this as well. So it's one of those we thought we'd make it a bit of a bigger opportunity and take a little holiday as well while we're there. So
I think that's really good, that, because I know when I go away, my partner comes with me. I'm a grumpy sod. And I'm thinking about work. I'm just thinking about work, so I'm not particularly good. Once the work's done, I'm all right. So I quite admire that, the fact that you think it would be an addition or enhancement to your experience. I think that's excellent. There's a good support structure, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think I thought about that before as well, whether because I fly a lot by myself, has that ever contributed to, some of the I suppose the fear, or whether that's kind of contributed in any way to how I felt and the experiences I've had. But most of those I think most of the travel I do, or the majority of the travel I do, is by myself with work. So it's those, maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year that we do get a chance to go and do either a holiday or a little break somewhere. And we've taken the opportunity to fly somewhere that it would be with the family. So so it'd be nice. I think it does feel like I say, a little bit of a handhold almost, but at the same time, I'm really looking forward to just now trying to get that next one done, or doing that next one, getting back on the transatlantic horse again, so to speak.
So when you've travelled, what do you tend to say to your partner in terms of what support they need to give you or not? I mean, what's your do you have a deal between you that you agree?
When she's with me or not?
No,
I mean, I was saying this to her actually when I mentioned I was doing the podcast, saying, whether would it be interesting to include her in part 2 maybe, and just say, what is her experience?
What was he like then? Like, shut up, Wes. What was he like really? Bring her along. Yeah, definitely.
Her opinion is, man up, you're being soft. What's wrong with you? Get on with it.
Right. Yeah.
So
deep.
It's helpful.
Tough love, then.
Yeah. It's one of the.
You want me to edit that bit out? Or shall I leave it in?
No, you can leave that in. So that's her opinion, and she was even saying the other day, the biggest concern of hers for our flight out to Orlando is going to be what choices she's going to have to watch on the screens. Is there going to be a decent movie or a decent TV episode choice for her to pick from? Yeah, because the little one's going to be on her movies and Nintendo games and all that kind of stuff. So I imagine she's going to be sort of more concerned about that. Whereas, this is, and always has been, a big deal to me. So she doesn't really, ask too much, I think, unless, as I say, on the way home from Turkey, where we ended up with the kind of bumpiness, and it was then just a quick, are you okay? We wouldn't necessarily talk about it in any detail, and historically I wouldn't have talked
this
about
sort of
it.
like this double, are you okay? Man up. You okay? Man up.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's always felt like it's been my thing to deal with, and so it's been me. If I'm out walking the dog, or if I'm going picking a little one up from school, and I'll walk around to pick her up, it's my headphones, listening to the podcast, or in the car even sometimes if I end up driving somewhere. So
I think what she's doing is sounds like it's quite a helpful approach for you, just like there, but not overly fawning over you or anything. She sort of sees that it's your thing. But
yeah. So then I guess the other things I thought I've kind of summarized where or what I think my issue was. I say was because I'm trying to change my language now and say, I used to have it written down to say, what am I scared of? Whereas now it's what was I scared of? And it was basically turbulence, but it's not knowing when it's coming. It's the feeling of it. It's how long is it going to last? How bad is it going to be? And I believe it's tied to that experience that I had.
Yeah.
But in total, it's like having to do long flights with all of the above. That is just, it's an aggravation to me that I have to sit through it, and I don't want to put myself through it. I don't want to do it. I guess as I've got older, it's kind of like, how can I leave a simpler, nicer, better life, and you avoid things you don't want to do anymore. So, and then it would be that anxiety in the days or weeks or even months leading up to it.
Yeah.
And I was always concerned that, would it become a problem with work? Or would I start to miss out on, family and work trips as well? So yeah, I think I see lots of people who also don't like the turbulent side of it. But as I say, when we're coming down, if it's the last bit of the flight, it can bobble around fine. I know we're coming through the clouds, all those kind of things. We're heading in the right direction and it's going to be done soon. So that doesn't bother me then. It's when I've got to wait and find out and sit there
So
through it
how
for a while.
long? So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? So you can do 4 or 5 hours, right? Which is like only two and a bit hours off in New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's some sort of rule you've set there
Yeah.
because Turkey, like so that's interesting, isn't it? And then also when you're coming into land, that you've decided, well, that's all right then. It doesn't matter what it does because I know we're coming into land. So
Yeah.
and
It's over soon.
that could be an hour, couldn't it? You could come into land for an hour from a long flight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting what sort of stuff we tell ourselves, really, isn't it? Because then you've got, so if you take it to 4 or 5 hour flight Turkey, and the last hour is fine, it's only a couple of hours that you've got to work on, isn't it?
Yeah. 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 And obviously, we'll be doing in the coming weeks. So,
Yeah.
so then, I used to have this list then in terms of what can I do about it, which now is what did I do about it, and am I doing about it? So the first one was kind of accepting it, accepting that turbulence is that's a normal thing on a flight, and
Yeah.
understanding more about that, and that it's not a problem for me or the aircraft. And then trying to do those shorter practice flights. I think exposure was a big thing. Doing some of the other things that kind of got me out of my comfort zone. I think, I don't know if you saw, I put it on the group a little while back where I even sort of went out and flew a little plane because we live near a little airport.
Yeah.
Just did a little private session, and my wife and I, we both took turns just sort of having half an hour each flying it around, and we had the
Oh
little
yeah,
one
I
in there
remember
with
that.
us as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Was that all right?
Yeah, apart from when it started bumping over, we went over some trees, and it started to do this, and it was like, oh, this is exactly the sensation. This is the exposure thing that you kind of need, but can't say I enjoyed it. But when I was flying, completely different. You're obviously concentrating. You're in control of it. Control could be a good thing. I guess a good reason for a lot of this as well. But the first thing he did when we went up was he was just sort of explaining. I'm in the back with our youngest. My wife's in the front with one of the controls, and then he was basically just saying, right, so if you do this, it does this. If you do this, it does this. And if you do this, and he just pushed it forward, and everybody just went like this down. And I just went, I don't like it. And he was just, being funny, but obviously didn't realize because I hadn't told him about my nervousness.
No.
And then I think when we were swapping over, the girls were sort of getting out, and he was like, "You're all right. You seemed a bit nervous back there," and I was kind of explained a little bit more then about what the situation was.
And you didn't help, you bastard. Yeah.
No, exactly. So yeah, things like that. I think the listening to the podcasts has been a big thing. Other types of things, maybe some of the like relaxation stuff, try maybe some hypnosis things. I've just helped calming you down before you go into sleep sometimes. I did try
Anything in
that.
particular that you're listening, because because you've got a nice little list there, but like if you use anything in particular, then feel free to plug it.
No, I think I tend to just search for that type of criteria really around fear of flying, hypnosis stuff, or it tends to be podcasts mainly on Spotify that I'll tend to search through and just bookmark. I tried that EasyJet one, which had a few different things in there, but I've never really gone back to that. I've tried to talk to people who love flying, generally people who are either pilots or not. And remember, there's a guy I know he's a pilot for one of the sort of commercial like the delivery long haul stuff. So he's doing long haul all the time. And, I was trying to sort of test a few of my learnings with him and ask him about this and that, and keep saying we'll sort of have a proper chat about things and understand a bit more. I remember I literally sat next to a pilot on one of those BA short flights to London once as well, and just quizzed him constantly for about half an hour. So again, I found that helpful. That was something that just, listening to them normalize.
Did you mind?
No. I asked him first. He said, "Do you mind?" And he was like, "No, that's fine." So yeah, it was a good one, that one. Just quizzing him a bit like one of your previous sort of podcasts with Captain Steve, I think it was.
Yeah.
I've tracked flights in the Tracker app, just looking at where people are going. And again, it's just all that normalization of stuff. Going up to the airport, that was a really good one with that prep before going to Jersey, with that gap in COVID. But I'd go and drive up to Manchester Airport, and then we'd sit on they have the runway visitor park there, and you can just sit literally next to the runway.
Yeah.
And they're just coming in and out constantly.
Yeah.
You just watch them effortlessly, go in and out. So again, it's just taking that normalization of it, understanding how regular this is, as opposed to where that constant chatter in your mind is just kind of like,
of course.
Yeah. Breathing, definitely a big thing. I found that to be a big difference, that connection between the mental kind of like flipping your lid and going off on one in your mind, between like keeping yourself physically calm, controlling physically, I think there's a big connection there. And that's been something that I found useful to be aware of and kind of notice, what is the trigger? How does it feel? But control that feeling, and then not allow that to then spill into the kind of mind going racing as well.
Yeah.
But also, I think that getting help from professionals has been another big thing. So I tried the CBT therapy, and it kind of resulted in, them saying exposure, we think, is the one that really is going to help you here. But it was really difficult because of the problem, because of my nervousness, to try and find an exposure without actually doing it. Is a difficult thing. We'd literally be sat on calls like this, and he would have me close my eyes and pretend I was, like on this flight, bouncing around on my chair, and like imagining the light coming on and doing all these kind of things too. And I guess it was good to talk that through and understand more about how the mind works, and again that physical connection between your body and the mind. But what I then ended up doing after that, because I kind of got to the end of the point where they were sort of saying, okay, well, we think you need to just go and put it into practice now. But I had an opportunity to also go and try EMDR as well, the tapping type therapy thing, and treat it more as the reason for that was because the other thing that they were saying in the CBT thing was there is actually like this traumatic event that happened. And so if you look at treating it more as a trauma rather than just the kind of talking side of it, would that make any difference? So that's the most recent thing that I've been trying, which again, I feel I must be doing better because we've actually booked a flight and we are going on a long haul trip. So that's been something else that I've tried, which I think has been a useful technique. And part of that, using the sort of the tapping, or I think other people do left and right eye movements whilst they're actually trying to sort of load in a feeling about something, and being able to sort of imagine what's triggering you, but at the same time trying to sort of bring down the way that you react to that, and then again using the tapping to sort of install that into the mind. So so that's something currently doing, and I'm going to keep doing that just in the weeks coming up to doing the big trip. So that's where we are at present day.
Okay. So you're doing lots, aren't you? You're doing tons and tons of stuff there.
Yeah.
There's got to be lots of, there's lots of great tips you said, but there's a sort of a determination coming through that I'm getting.
Yeah, you've got to want to do it, haven't you? I think there's definitely a big thing around, you've got to be, I think the way you mentioned it before, was it the right time or not previously when I tried the hypnosis thing? Not sure at the time or whether I really needed to do it then, but you've got to really want to do it, to be able to kind of bring yourself back around when that the kind of the anxious thoughts side of it, I think, can really take over.
Yeah.
And I can certainly go through blips of an evening. I find it's more when I'm tired
Yeah.
that it kind of does that. But then I'll try and notice that and try and think about that being, oh, it's those thoughts again. It's that
Yeah.
time of the day again. You're tired or whatever. Large amounts of caffeine doesn't seem to help either. So that tends to sort of keep the brain, going into overdrive as well. So it's I think an approach that I've tried to sort of use more to try and think about it, categorize it, notice it coming in, and then again I tie it to quite often being the tired parts of the day.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're just less distracted even. So
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one because when you are tired, you have less ability or less resources, don't you, to sort of, also you're working very hard at the moment. And if you're doing EMDR, you've done some CBT, it's not just the sessions, your brain is, literally rewiring itself in between, it's having thoughts and you're challenging them. So you're working around the session as well. I think that's really good. Really good,
yeah.
Wes.
I think you do have to chip away at it constantly. I think there's always that, trying to sort of creep back in. I found myself when we got the announcement at work and they were saying, right, we're going to Atlanta. I remember at the time it was like I didn't get that sudden anxiousness that kick in, and I was like, well, that was weird. And then over the course of the next week, it was like, when's it going to kick in?
Yeah.
And it was one of a feeling of, I'm changing here. I'm feeling like I've made some progress here. This is, the step in the right direction that you've been working towards. This is the result of all this work you've done over the last year or so now. So yeah, that was really nice. But then at the same time, your brain is kind of like, it's coming back at some point though. It's going to be, it's going to kick in. So you've got to keep on top of that.
Yeah, you have got to keep on top of it, but you have done a lot of work. So you have a right. This is quite common. I've noticed that people when they notice the anticipatory anxiety starts to decrease and stuff, or the certain thoughts just aren't there anymore. They're more surprised about that. It's like, why am I crapping myself? Why am I sleeping? Why am I eating on this flight? What's going wrong?
Yeah. You do question it. You do challenge that, and your mind's kind of like, why? It's a nice thing, but it's also then trying to sort of work out when's it coming back then. So it's one of those. I'm trying to just keep chipping away at it, and then hopefully nail in the coffin and done.
What a lovely expression.
Mm-hmm.
Nail in the coffin, then we're done. Great. Fantastic. That was, perhaps we need a different image. A slightly different metaphor might be more helpful.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
No, well, there you go. So give us your sort of like timeline between now and how long we got?
So it's going to be in first of December. We're going to be flying out to the US.
Sorry, I've said that before. I missed it.
So we go out then, and then we're out there for 2 weeks. So I think it's 2 weeks later that we come back again. And then in the meantime, nothing else in particular planned. I guess if there was an opportunity that comes up short notice, might end up in Jersey again, or with a flight down to London, but nothing else planned at the moment. So it's
okay. So you're in a good place then. You've been doing lots of work. You've still got a few weeks left.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. We want some more updates, Wes. That's what we're going to request. So if you're all right with that, because for those in the Facebook group, Wes is in there, so we'll be expecting some. You don't have to do it daily, but just maybe if you'd indulge us and just share a little bit of what's going on for you.
Yeah, sure.
In
the lead up.
Because it's interesting. We like to know, particularly because we think you'll come back and do part 2 with your partner. And she can tell us, just say, pipe down, Wes. Right, tell us, how was he?
Yeah.
And it'll also be quite interesting to ask her how she knows what to do. Like what has she worked out? What the right approach is with you, because a lot of partners are quite lost and they don't quite know what to do. They want to sort of make it all okay,
Yeah. I'm not sure she does anything like so, unless I asked for something. I think it's just more, just a quick check-in.
This is recorded,
right.
Wes. You do know that, don't you?
Yeah.
Maybe you're going on your own.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think we were saying about the lead up and just kind of logging that, because I think about it all day, like throughout the day, every day. And it's been nice over this last week where there have been some parts of some days where it's like you realize a few hours later, I didn't think about it for a bit now. And I'm looking for those, bigger gaps now, and trying to sort of see that, come through. Might be a balance again, because it gets closer, and then it'll be more right. It's only 2 weeks away now. It's only a week away. It's only a days away. And it'll probably just get to the point where it's like, just get it done. We need to get it over with so I can, measure the after. But I think it does seem for a lot of people, and I've found as well that lead up to it and the days or weeks of thinking about it can often be worse than the actual flight itself. And you just go with it. But I always found that with the turbulence as well, it was kind of you have the fight or flight reaction, but I was freeze. So it was fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And I would just like tense and just kind of, I'm like waiting for it to just be done, or I'm trying to focus on, to focus on what I'm watching or reading or working on at the time, and then just get through that. I'm there in that minute only until it's done. And I've even had lists of things to sort of use as a backup and say, right, if you feel uncomfortable, go to one of these. And I've never even got to the point of getting that list out, to say, what's next? Listen to this. What's next? Read this. Think about this as a mantra. I'm just kind of in that moment, frozen, and it's kind of get through it. So,
well, you were. I mean, it would be interesting to see whether that shifted, because the EMDR works by sort of reducing the power of things like that, so it becomes like a bit more of a non-event.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. If I would say anybody, no matter how happy a flyer they are, if they suddenly encountered turbulence, as I said, that not hit, encountered turbulence quickly and they weren't expecting it, I think anyone initially would be like, oh, what was that? And then it's what happens next, isn't it? So I think because you've been doing that work to reduce, I'd be surprised if you're not noticeably better when you fly.
Yeah, I already found that on the way back from Turkey. As I say, it was one of those where I was kind of watching my movie at the time, enjoying the movie, and just felt less bothered by it on that trip.
That's great, isn't it? Yeah, that'd be great. I just can't wait to hear how you get on. So maybe we'll have to get you back. Maybe you can come and join us in, I don't know, mid-December or early January, and just let us know what went well. What's improved.
Yeah. Certainly, the milestone, as I say, is get that done, and then to me that is me back to normal, back to what it used to be then. So it's not kind of trying to avoid these trips. It's not even being unfazed by when these trips do come up, but all those it's looking for opportunities. We have things we've worked. There was one recently, and the other guys were kind of like, we might get to go to Japan with this one, and I'm kind of like, well, no, no, thank you. But at the same time, I'd love to go to Japan. I can't even, the culture side of it, I've never experienced that side of the world. So, it would be getting beyond the avoidance into not just the welcoming of those opportunities, but looking for other opportunities as well. I want to get back to that.
I think you're right, and like being blunt about it, you've got fantastic opportunities at your fingertips, and you're not able to use them at the moment, and that's the sort of shit that eats you up later. Isn't it? So the fact that you're actively moving towards it and you still got the ability to do these amazing things is fantastic news.
Yeah, agreed.
So, final words then. Thank you for sharing the story. It's been great, and we'll sure look forward to hearing the update. All right. If there's anything we can do, just shout, put some stuff in the Lovefly group. But just as, maybe just a little sum up, this is coming. Any sort of if you had to give us a couple of top tips that you've learned along the way, or last messages of hope, what might they be?
I think that my main tip has got to be around the exposure. So, and I'm talking from my experience in terms of, like for me, it was turbulence, but generally, how can you find exposure to it to gradually work back into, or gradually work towards, if you've never even done it before? And so things like visiting the airport and just sitting by the runway and seeing the planes going in and out. It's really sad, but there's a YouTube channel that I watch all the time called Airliners Live, and they just chat about all sorts of stuff, what pies they like, or some event that's coming up, or what they were doing at the weekend. But they're also talking about the planes coming in and out, where they've been, where they're going, and you can just watch these, like the A380s. I was almost gutted we weren't going on something like that to the US trip coming up, just to have the opportunity to be on one of those huge latest aircrafts. But whatever you can find in terms of that exposure piece, and whether that's, we've talked about virtual reality before, is there a VR thing? Is there a just standing next to the airport? Is it going to a simulator and seeing what it's like to fly? Or is it, just sitting in the coffee shop in the entrance of the airport? What can you find in terms of exposure? And it might be that you need to sort of be more gradual about that. But the more you can get used to it and normalize it, I think that's the key. What was the other question?
That's it.
All right.
Good words of hope. Any tips or words of hope? Last messages of hope.
I think you've got to not give up. You've got to not give up, because it's so easy to just go, okay, I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to instead think, I'll just not do that, and I don't have to worry about it. But I really, really want to get over my my issue, and it's kind of, how do I? This is the only thing that holds me back from all the things I want to do. Everything else in life and goals, whether it's home, career, business, whatever we've done, I've been successful in doing those things. This is the one thing that stops me from doing certain things. Do not give up on that. If you want something, you need to not give up on it, whatever. And there will be setbacks along the way, but keep trying.
Love it. That's your drop your mic moment, isn't it? That one there. Wes, absolutely brilliant, mate. We're looking forward to part 2. Good luck with your preparation between now and then, the first 2 weeks of December. What great experience that's going to be for your family as well. I just think it's phenomenal. And we wish you all really the best. And if there's anything we can do to help, just shout. Keep doing what you're doing. It's brilliant.
No, we'll keep going. Make sure you hum the music on the way out as well, just so it feels a bit more normal.
I'm not going to do it. Sorry.
Fair enough. I will speak to you again very soon.
Thank you, Wes. It's great.
All right.